Today was the day, the big stimulus deadline, and the media has been painting this as if a deal didn't get done today, that there would be no new stimulus bill, and the verdict is in. Both sides just came out and gave their press statements after their 2-hour meeting, and both sides agreed that the meeting did not go well. There is no new deal. They did not meet the deadline, but do not fret because this was not a hard deadline. They will continue to meet with each other to figure out a stimulus bill. Unfortunately, because we have children in the place of leadership, they are not going to get it done when they should. It's going to take them another week or two, but I believe it will happen. On this episode, I'm going to share with you what each side said in this press statement, and then you can decide who you think is right and wrong, and then that can influence your decisions for November. Welcome back, everybody, to your stimulus update for Friday, August 7th, and a big update it is. So when they came out to the mics, it was Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer first, and Chuck Schumer zipped right over that mic, and he opened up by saying that the meeting was a big disappointment, and then he went right into this idea that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been pushing for the last 24 hours, that they're willing to come down $1 trillion if the Republicans come up $1 trillion, and the reason they're doing this is, like I told you 3 days ago, Nancy Pelosi actually put herself in a bad position by saying the lowest number she would accept is $3.4 trillion. Public opinion turned against her, and so did media opinion, even though the media is generally on the side of the Democrats, because she was seen as not negotiating honestly. So they had to shift very quickly and come up with this new tactic of coming down $1 trillion and up $1 trillion. Unfortunately, they have zero details on what they're going to get rid of in their bill, and that was one of the problems that Mark Meadows and Stephen Mnuchin brought up. Also, Chuck Schumer said that he is hopeful that they can come up with something in the future, which is a good thing. But he did say that if there was nothing that they could negotiate and figure out, that Stephen Mnuchin and Mark Meadows would go to President Donald Trump after the meeting and that executive orders would then be issued. Both sides agreed that executive orders is not the best way to do it. And so then Nancy Pelosi came up to the mic and she just started talking a lot about children and schools and teachers and economic assistance and food for kids and all those things that a politician likes to say that looks good on the camera. But let me just cut through the nonsense. What is she really talking about? The state and local government money. The Democrats want $915 billion for state and local governments. And of course, the Republicans do not want to offer that much money because they just simply see it as a ton of bailout money for state governments that have not handled their financials well. Now, I do believe that these state governments do need some money, but I would be in agreement that $915 billion is very ridiculous. I don't care how you paint the picture of hungry kids and teachers who need help. I'm a teacher, but $915 billion for state governments, they're not even spending close to that amount of money for this pandemic situation. So there's just too much extra there. And then after that, Stephen Mnuchin and Mark Meadows came up, and then they agreed that it didn't go well, that they said they wanted to get a deal and a compromise, that there was no progress today, and they were requested for a new meeting. And then he said, we did not get a specific compromise on the state and local government money, and we did not get a specific compromise on unemployment. So that's where the disagreement is happening. The Republicans, Stephen Mnuchin and Mark Meadows, are coming in with a number, something. I don't know what the number is because they're not telling us. Imagine it's $200 billion. They're saying, listen, Nancy Pelosi and Mark Meadows, here is our number, $200 billion. This is what we're willing to give to state and local governments. What is your number that you're willing to come down to? There is no number that they're willing to come down there. They're not willing to come down at all from $915 billion. But Vin, you just said that they're willing to come down $1 trillion. They are willing to come down $1 trillion, but they're not going to take that money from any of the programs they want. What they're going to do is they're going to end programs earlier. So rather than ending a program in January, they're going to end it in October so that they'll save themselves that $1 trillion. So basically, they're saying, hey, we'll come down $1 trillion, but we're not going to change any of our numbers. We're just going to change the amount of time. And Mark Meadows and Stephen Mnuchin are like, wait a second, you're just going to change the amount of time? That means once we hit October, we're going to have to renegotiate to continue this stuff. And they're like, exactly, which means you're not actually changing anything because we're going to have to come out with another bill to extend this anyway. They need to come out with exact numbers. I'm sick and tired of both sides coming out to the press and trying to paint this picture like, well, we're willing to do this. Tell us the numbers. Give us the exact in-print numbers that you're willing to do for the length of time. They won't do it because these people are slimy. That's what they're like. They're just playing these games. So this is what's going to happen going forward. Stephen Mnuchin is going to make the recommendations to Donald Trump today that he issues those executive orders, which are not going to be wonderful, but it's going to be something. They're going to be able to continue the unemployment boost at some number. There's some money somewhere in some coffers that they're going to be able to put towards it. He's also going to issue an executive order on the moratorium for the mortgages and the renting. And then he's also going to issue an executive order for the payroll taxes. But none of those are really the solution, and both sides agree to that. And so each side is going to give their own arguments, but cutting through the nonsense, Republicans are probably willing to come up to about $1.5 trillion or something like that. They're probably willing to give about $200 billion to state and local governments. They're probably willing to come up to about $400 a week for the unemployment boost. They're probably willing to continue this stuff all the way through January, but they're not going to go too much above $1.5 trillion. They might come a little higher than that. Democrats are willing to come down to about $2.4 trillion, but they're not going to lower the amount of money that they're giving to any of the entities in the bills. They're only going to lower the amount of time that the people get that money. You guys decide, where do you fall on this? What do you think? What would you do? Would you just agree with one side or the other if you were negotiating? I know what I would say to each side. You give me a new bill with a new number coming in between $2 to $2.2 trillion. I want exact information, exact dates, and exact numbers that are going to the individuals. You give me it. You give me it. You have 1 week. We are meeting back here in 1 week at the $2 to $2 trillion number with exact figures and timelines. That's what we're going to do. Adjourned. We're coming back in 1 week. Unfortunately, these people can't figure out that that is a common sense idea that would work, rather than sitting around a table and being like, well, let's just come down and you come up. Well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Children. We have children running things. So anyway, I do believe that they are going to get a deal done. Unfortunately, it's going to take them a lot longer than it should take them. Another thing I want to tell you guys about is an important date that's coming up, and it's going to be in September. It is the first debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I am going to be covering the presidential debates here. If you like the analysis that I give on some of this political stuff, I encourage you, consider subscribing to the channel. You're not going to be disappointed in the analysis that I give from the presidential debates. You're going to want to see the highlights, and I am going to give them to you. I hope you guys join me for that. As always, I hope you got something out of the information today. I will catch you guys next time.